and I got 55 people to say yes to a $2,000 offer. I made over $100,000 in a week, and that broke my brain. Fast forward, I've been able to see multiple six figures in days. You get paid more to teach a thing than you do to do a thing. I like to say content creation is wealth creation, but also offer creation is wealth creation.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to episode 137 of the 505 podcast. Today we got Omar Eltakrori in the house, and he has gone through an insane transformation with his personal brand in the last year. He's also spent $55,000 on a coaching program, and we break down everything about that. Was it worth it? And the actionable steps that he actually came away with.
Well, what's so great is that he does break down like what goes into his personal brand, how he's been able to monetize to over 7 figures, and what it takes to build a strong personal brand in 2025. We really go into the weeds of YouTube and like how he goes about structuring his YouTube and the pre-planning that goes into him creating his YouTube videos and podcasts.
I mean, you hear that word thrown around a lot, right? Personal brand this, personal brand that. You should be investing in this. But people don't really tell you like step by step what you got to do.
Yeah.
And he does a great job in this episode of giving you the blueprint that's actually working for him, the things they're doing on all the different platforms. He's someone that talks the talk, walks the walk. I mean, he doesn't leave anything behind the curtain. And this was one of my favorite episodes that we've ever done. He talks a lot about mindset as well. Something that I think that a lot of creators, a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of filmmakers, they don't talk about that stuff.
Well, he talks about how people just don't look at content as like a long-term thing. It's like if you just don't quit and you keep going, you will see success. With podcasting specifically, he said he goes into it, or he went into it being like, I'm going to do this for a while, which is what we've done as well. So I really resonated with that, and it was cool to hear his perspective on that.
I don't want to hold you guys any longer. Let's get into it. Omar, give me the one-handed crack.
The one-handed crack, so I have to lift this up.
And then you're going.
And then I have to do this.
Nice.
Put it back.
Down. Spin it. Oh, no dents.
Brother, that was one of the best ones. 8-7, baby. Welcome to the show. Okay, I'm going to show you a good one, too. There's a good one, but I had a little spillage. A little spillage is going to dock me. 7-9. What do you got for me? He's going to do terrible. You dented it. Dude, I see a dent in the side.
Dented it on both sides.
Oh,
Dude,
my God. 3-9. Cheers. Welcome to the show, Omar.
Thank you for having me.
I think that might be the first time the guest has had a higher score than Braden.
That's fire.
I think it's a first, but I had to be honest. I got to keep myself honest. They're going to be pissed if I don't actually give a reasonable score.
He likes to pad his stats a little bit.
There's no padding of stats.
Yeah, this is pretty good.
Yeah, this is fine.
Thank you.
Of course, dude.
Could
Welcome.
have just gave me water, and it's better than water. That's what's up.
So on September 8th of 2023 on YouTube, you made a very drastic shift in your content.
Oh, snap. You got the date. I got
the date. You went from making wedding stuff, portrait content, and you just dropped a podcast out of the blue. And I want to know about repositioning yourself. So you're posting all this content. What made you just make that hyper shift? And were you nervous at all to kind of make the shift? Were you afraid of what, maybe the wedding people were like, yo, I didn't sign up for this podcast. Talk us through that moment.
There's a window of time after I stopped posting on my personal channel and then started my podcast. And that was creating content on Think Media. And that content was geared toward anything around the idea of creating videos, editing, camera, whatever, but the reason why I decided to go on with podcasting is me understanding the goal was to just be consistent. I could all day come up with content with my expertise, but I found one way to leverage the time of creating is through a conversation, and I my thing was like, if I can create consistent, high quality videos that are long, it'll give me so much more stuff to then put out. And I realized that like one of the best ways that I shine is literally being asked and then conversing. So I don't know. I think, not to go too deep, but it was just a simple way to be consistent. And then you learn later on that there's ancillary benefits from podcasting, like free coaching. Like if that's something you guys wanted to do out from a person, invite them on your podcast and then have them consult whatever situation you're in.
We did that with Daniel Priestley, who I know you've had on, and kind of with Chris Do as well, because we've had him on as well. But you're right. It's like you can bring on a guest. They obviously want to talk about themselves, but then you can be like, hey, what would you do about this?
Yeah, or
It's
if
free
they're giving an
consulting.
example, let's just say,
Sure.
if they're like, let's just say you XYZ, it's like, no, let's just say.
Yeah.
What if you were in this very position and it's the position you're in, you know?
Yeah.
And so, yeah, I mean, and then building relationship. I mean, I think one of the best things about putting yourself out there in the way of building your personal brand or producing content is creating relational opportunities.
Yeah.
And I think that's better than any money you can make.
Yeah, absolutely. So how did you get connected with Sean at Think Media? And what were some of those things while you were working there that he was able to instill in you and teach you about creating content?
Yeah, so good. We originally met because he was the like marketing director at a church, and I kind of was like I just started serving at first. And then it got to a point where the church moved him to Orange County, and I assumed the role of creative director. And that was kind of it. I mean, that was how we met. That's how our relationship started. And then in 2015, he set out to just give YouTube the shot, you know, and he did it by himself. And then a year later, I actually left that role. I was there for about 3.5 years until I resigned, because I just felt it was time for me to step out and start the entrepreneurial journey. I started a small agency doing weddings and stuff like that. And we ran into each other at the gym, and he was just like bootstrapping Think Media, shooting and editing all his videos. He didn't really have anything to sell. He just was getting a little bit of money from affiliate marketing, which is essentially recommending products and getting a percentage if people buy them. And it just made sense as far as the time I had. I didn't think that Think Media would become like an 8-figure company and become one of the like go-to resources for people in the journey of creating videos. But as far as what he taught me, I think what he taught me was how to be an educator. Like, teaching is a really financially lucrative thing online. Like, I mean, teachers in the regular space, they should be paid more, I believe, but you get paid more to teach a thing than you do to do a thing. And I didn't know that when he asked me like, hey, can you like start teaching? Can you start making videos? What I didn't know was that it was gonna make me the face of the brand. A lot of people think when they thought Think Media, they thought of me. And that's because he graduated into a like podcast. He wanted to focus on like the very long form. And I was just doing like the practical, you know, camera tutorials and editing tutorials. But yeah, I think what it did is it put me in a place to really get good at making the thing I'm good at very easily understandable, which a lot of people say, like, you just make it easy. Like, you feel like you give me the permission to do the thing and do it well. But yeah, I mean, outside of that too, just like, you know, being a faith-based entrepreneur and building your business with biblical principles, you know, just the way he leads people is incredible. And so yeah, my time there was like incredible, and I learned so much. And that's kind of why I started the podcast, because I felt like, you know, there were some things that I found that Think Media wasn't, you know, really involved in helping people with. And as far as being high touch. And so, yeah, I mean, I figured I started coaching, and it started working really well, and it's working really well today.
Flag on the play.
What's going on, Fig?
Listen, it's something that everybody needs.
Tell me.
It's Artlist.io. Okay? You need a music licensing platform. And not only do we have the best music licensing platform partner, they renewed for a whole year. So
Another year?
We get to chat about them for a whole year.
When were you going to tell me this?
Today. This is us finding
Let's
out.
go.
This is us finding out about the partnership.
2025 is going to be big.
It's amazing. Okay. They got the best sound effects, the best music, the best stock footage, the best LUTs, voiceover. I mean, you name it, they got it. It's Artlist.io, and you get 2 months for free if you use our code down in the description, and it directly supports the Rocks and the podcast. So please check them out. Go get yourself a subscription. Let's get back into it. What was some of the original ideas and concepts behind coaching? Because I know you obviously have a skill in creating content. You did that for quite some time. When did the idea for coaching happen? Was it while you were at Think Media, or was it after, kind of in this transitionary period?
Yeah, I think the transitionary period was fall of 2022. I went on a trip to Atlanta with Sean, and I saw these group of entrepreneurs that all had like great personal brands, and they all like did something. They all coached in various different aspects, but they were all essentially coaching consultants, and they were just securing their bag, man. Like, they were just making a lot of money, and then the way they were doing it, I felt like there was a disconnect, because I was like, dude, you know, like there's there's so much awareness and so much brand, but how come like this is where there was, and that's all it was. It was the seed of a possibility. And when I came back, I didn't know what my next step was. All I knew was like, there was something in me more than just making videos on cameras. And so I don't know why it turned into this next step, but it was like, you need a studio. Like you need to find a place, like legitimize yourself, bro. You know? So I was doing a lot of my creating from my home office, and then Kyle Anderson, a friend of mine, he has a loft that he's kind of decked out, and it's a vibe. But found a space, and it was a scary thing to sign a 3-year lease on. And it's weird that I passed 2 years and I'm about to go to another spot. And that move kind of just set me in the direction to discovery. And that's what I like saying, doing leads to discovery. Just taking action, it allows you to get access to more information, and then you can make other decisions along the way. And then, I mean, long story short, I just put out an offer. I just said, hey, I'm thinking about doing this. Is anybody interested? And I got 55 people to say yes to a $2,000 offer. So I made over $100,000 in a week, and that broke my brain. I was like, okay, bro, chill. Like, what's happening here? And so fast forward, I've been able to see, multiple 6 figures in days. And it's kind of just shifted my brain around how you can build a business in a way that really serves both parties. And and not need a huge audience, but have build a brand or build the trust with the content. And then for the people that raise their hand, they can work with you.
Well, I think 2 things. One, we just finished doing our first ever cohort together where we were teaching the business side of the creator space. And you're so right. It's incredible how you can make a good amount of money from the coaching side. But I think even more than that, it's like extremely fulfilling, which we get from the podcast as well. Like yesterday was actually our last call, and we did just like a Q&A, and we asked how we could make it better for the going forward. And everyone was just like,
charge more money.
I can't believe how cheap it was. And like this completely transformed my life and my business. And just the response that we got from it, I was pretty taken aback. And it's something that I knew we had like value to provide, but like hearing it after you go through a 6-week period is really like, good. Oh my God.
Good thing you like 6 weeks.
Yeah.
Shout out to you guys. Cause I started with a year. And so that was my commitment. Yeah. So I coached 55 people in a group, setting for a year.
You get great testimonials though.
Yeah. I mean, also just even, and I think the way you did it was actually good. I think the 2 ways to do it is start with a cohort.
Sure.
Or start with one-on-one. So that way you're getting the feedback. Because at some point you can assume a lot of problems prior to them coming in. And then you that's how you get people a result quicker. It's like I've already helped hundreds or thousands of you, so start here, go here, and then boom, 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 and then they get the result. But yeah, I started with a year. So, I mean, whatever. It actually created a capacity in me, and like my program is still a year, my inner circle, and I'm down to journey with people for a year because I realized that content creation is a skill. Finding your message is a skill. Developing offers it's a skill, and life happens. And so I'll one day have like A to Z or A to B things, but right now I'm okay with that.
That's something we also got feedback on is they wanted more. I feel like every week we were trying to teach them as much as we could, but what they found the most value in is like when we would role play, like we would pretend to be a client.
Every client we've ever been through, and just like try to play that off.
Or like we would have them make like pitch decks, and they were like, we would love more like one-on-one coaching is like how to make it better. Yeah. And so we learned a lot, but I think you're right. Like spending more time with someone allows you to really like dive deep into their brand and really help them out.
Yeah. And honestly, getting people a result and unpacking like where they're at, so much other people just represent that individual, or so many people represent that cohort you just helped. But yeah, like to the point that you mentioned, like we at first we just taught so much. What people don't realize, especially coaches that are starting out, is they don't realize that you're in the deep end and they're dipping their toes. And so if you teach something back to back to back to back, they are still trying to process and even implement and figure out how they're going to implement the thing you taught 2 weeks ago, and you're 3 more lessons in. It's like, whoa. And I found that when you overwhelm, when you over deliver, you overwhelm, and an overwhelmed person doesn't usually take action. And so, yeah, when I started my thing, it was just like every week I came with like a training. Now I actually, because of the feedback, I do one masterclass call a month where I do bring something that's fresh, like something that I've got, I'm discovering and developing. And then I do Q&A for 2 weeks. And then I do hot seat calls where I'm like watching content and like watching intros to their YouTube videos and then trying to adjust. So it is more back and forth.
Wow. It's so interesting because what from the skills that you learned as like a wedding filmmaker as well as like a portrait photographer, I went back and watched those YouTube videos and you're coaching them on their poses and stuff. And now I feel like that's kind of transitioned to helping people, with the content that they're making. What are some of the biggest things that you're noticing that kind of take their videos to the next level now that you're coaching people on making their content better?
Yeah. I mean, I think video to the next level insinuates a million things because there's the quality, there's the production value next level. And I think to some level, there should be a level of production value that makes it easy to consume. A great light with a smartphone and a good mic does wonders. But for some other people, it's like, if you want a premium brand, your videos should look premium. So it's like the objective of next level, that might be that vertical, which 100% I love helping. But what I also found was you can have production value, but have like no content value. So it's also getting good at talking, like, and then not only getting good at talking, getting good at packaging your ideas. I help a lot of people who want to be the expert, or at least the known expert, because the problem isn't usually the lack or, the problem isn't the expert. The problem is no one knows them. They're just not a known expert. And that's where most people are at. That's why I lead with that marketing. Like, if I go in a room, I say, who here believes they're really good at what they do? Bro, it's like everyone does. It's like, raise your hand, keep your hand up if you feel like you're the known expert. All the hands go down. Like, you realize that like the one thing that would add so much value to your life is simply being known for the thing but the way you do that is I'd say obsession. Like, when you obsess about the people you're helping, you can help them better. And that's what a thought leader is somebody who just carries out thoughts and unpacks it. And so when people ask me questions, I'm doing a better job at just delivering it in threes or in a framework. And that's just because I'm like wanting to be as clear as possible. And I want the people that I coach to be able to do that for their industry. So, I help a lot of real estate professionals. And it's like, if you're a first-time home buyer, what are the top 3 things you need to do? Can you make that more sexy and more appealing, or deliver that in a way? So there's content value and production value, and then there is like the whole back end side of things where so that's what I help people with.
I do want to get into the back end and the packaging, because that's something we've been doing the show for 3 years. We're still like ideating and figuring it out. I feel like every single week. How do you go about choosing a title for your podcast, deciding how to make the thumbnail, and like, are you ABC testing, and like, could you kind of put us on game as like your process on the back end and how to package content the best way possible on YouTube?
Yeah. So first, it starts with like the thinking. Like, I spend more time in the thinking prior to a conversation than I do the actual conversation itself. So because the more clear I am with that up front, the more clear the conversation is going to be. And then therefore, the more a person would like actually watch it. The issue is sometimes with and the opposite of this is no intention. So like, if one side of it is being hyper intentional and the other side of it is not, and it's just like, hey, I just have a podcast. That's fine. Like, that's fine if that's your objective, but like, I'm trying to grow the YouTube channel, So if you want it to really stick, you really want to think. I like to think of my podcast like a masterclass, like each conversation. And as much as I would love to have cover everything, I know that's not beneficial for the platform. So I do have to pick what I like to call a North Star. Like, what is the North Star of the conversation I'm going to have? Now, let that be the focus and use that to then pre-decide on a title. And the word there is pre-decide. So it's really important to have at least a few titles before you even start a video, because it is going to It is going to focus your attention in the conversation. And then later on, it is a podcast. We could talk about life and how you are as a family man, whatever, all that stuff. But most people don't care about that stuff. They care about themselves. And this is a sales thing. Like, sales psychology is understanding that people are inherently selfish. And when you lead with that, you'll become a better creator. So pre-decide on a title. Your title should be like I say one of two ways. It should read like an article headline. So if you know the topic you want to talk about, throw it into Google, the topic, and then put articles, and then just steal those article headlines. Those people went to college to write that article, and then you can just take it and move things around. Maybe the one you say is like the 21 mistakes for starting Airbnb, and it's like, oh, we could talk about 7 of them. We could talk about 10 of them, but just make it read like an article headline. And or you want to make sure it has it's what is called like a word picture, that when you read the title, is there an image that comes up in your mind? Because do you know about average view duration and click-through rate?
Sure.
Okay. Would your listeners or viewers?
Yeah.
Okay. Average view duration starts before they click, because they're processing the title and the thumbnail. So this is why it's really important to have a pulse of your audience, because if you can get a title that leads them to care a little bit and a thumbnail that brings curiosity, boom, then you got the click. But that's because they were processing it. So we got the title down. We want to make sure we decide on the title before we make the YouTube video. And then secondly, the thumbnail, I found oftentimes thumbnails that work best are, number one, simple, no more than 3 things. You got your face, you got the words, and maybe a busy background, maybe a clip art, maybe an emoji, whatever. Just less is more. You'll find pro level YouTubers actually have no text. It's just face, or 1 to 2 things. So no more than 3 things on the thumbnail. But when it comes to the words you use, you want people to internalize those words. So use a question phrase. So how to, or why. And anytime you can use the words why, what happens is people are asking the question and they internalize it. So then they start processing why you're getting no engagement.
I'm getting no engagement.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, I'm clicking on this, dude.
Right.
Is he talking to me specifically?
Yeah.
From 0 to 1 million, and it's like, I want to get it. So people, people are already starting the average view duration, and then they click on the video. So we have title, thumbnail, and then the first 30 seconds. So important. You don't need to have a super cinematic intro for a podcast. You don't need to have a crazy edited intro. You just need to make sure that the intro is clear, that there's comprehension. I like to say clarity, comprehension, and credibility. So clarity is it in the first 2 lines, does it align with the title and thumbnail to begin with? And I like using an enrolling question. So did you know that it's really hard to make $100,000 on YouTube, but it's really easy to make $100,000 with YouTube? Just like, and then you're
clicking.
And then comprehension is even the fact that I said it's easy. So people know that it's like, now when you leave this moment, you know that there's an easy route, but you're not going to leave it because I just sold you on the idea, right? And then credibility. I've been able to make over 7 figures with YouTube, and I'm going to talk about the fastest path to get there. So there's credibility in that phrase. So sometimes when I work out an intro with Art, when we go back and forth, I'm looking for those moments. And that's why I weave in best-selling author, multiple 7-figure entrepreneur, keynote speaker, whatever. Those things, they build credibility so that people can receive from the person that's giving the game. So that really, when I'm coaching YouTube videos, I don't care about the video. Because if you don't get that part right, then
no one's watching.
It's a waste.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, I actually think there's so much hidden gems on YouTube, but YouTube can't promote it because people didn't package it well. And so as hard as it is, I mean, I think some people think it's hard. For me, it's a little more easy, but it's because of the reps and really understanding the platform. I mean, if you can't get that part right, you might be wasting your time,
How do you balance coming up with a title or a thumbnail with text on it that balances like what you're going to be talking about and maybe a little bit of clickbait.
Sure.
Because you got to play the game a little bit.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think first is understanding that clickbait isn't inherently a bad thing. You can get people to click a video and it actually be good clickbait, you know? But that's where marketing and sales comes in. I think it comes to understanding what do people want. So if, you know, at one point I thought all people wanted was crispy videos. And then I learned it's like, no, you want crispy videos because you want to make a lot of money. So I need to be better at putting the money part up front. Crispy is like the answer to part of that question. But that's why the more you serve, the more you put out content, you get more feedback and more data, and you realize like, oh, so like, you know, we could package this and make it about money, when all reality inside the conversation, we're talking about sales. So it's not a sales conversation, it's a money conversation. So I think that the balance is in just understanding what people genuinely care about. And you can make things, you know, that's like saying, you know, how often does an airline balance showing the seat that they're selling and the destination they're taking people to? They don't. They always focus on the destination because they know that's where people want to go. But they're selling empty air seats, you know? So that's just in, you know, marketing and sales.
So it's so interesting. How important has video been for the growth of the podcast? Is that the entire thing? If someone wants to start a podcast, is audio, video, do they need to be on video? But let the viewers know.
No, you don't have to.
You don't have to.
I actually encourage, if you want to start a podcast, most people should just start with audio, get everybody to go to the audio experience, film it for the reels, but it's a beast. Like if you want to do it right, there's just so much
that goes into it.
Yeah. Now some people can start off the get-go and do it right, but I think most people, and that's the funny thing about the word podcast, because like people will say, hey Omar, I want to start a podcast. I'm learning that means 10 million different things. They're either saying, hey Omar, I want to start a virtual conversation and capture it online with a webcam. Some people are saying, I want to just myself look at a camera and talk into a mic, or I just want to record my audio, or I want to do in person, or I want to interview people, or I want to do it with my spouse. Like those are all different ways to do it. And when people say I want to start a podcast, I think it's just unpacking first, like choose the type of podcast that you can actually do really well up front.
And consistently.
Mm-hmm. And I think everyone can start an audio podcast. And then, I mean, you know, at some point we're going to have to reset these cameras. You guys know you have to do that. But like most people are like going to do their first episode and finish and be like, dang it.
Shit.
Yeah. So
we were rolling.
But yes, I have chosen from the beginning that with my podcast, I was going to leverage YouTube and how YouTube works. And so I played the YouTube game with my podcast. And so that's kind of how I've been able to grow it in this last year.
Is there any other advice you would give someone before ever hitting record if they want to start a podcast?
Of any shape.
Maybe like things to consider as well.
I mean, I think is like, what's the objective and what's the goal? My friend Peter Vuk says reasons come before results. And if you don't have a big enough why, chances are you're going to try podcasting and quit. But there's nobody who has succeeded in podcasting tried it. Everyone they just decided to do it, and their time horizon of success was very long. Or like most successful creators, entrepreneurs who create content, you know, it's because they set out a long time frame, and even they lowered the expectation of outcome. You know, most successful people actually, they remove themselves from the outcome of whatever it is they're doing. They just focus on the input and then change the inputs, iterate the inputs, and then that will eventually lead to better outcomes or outputs, right?
Yeah, I heard Alex Hormozy talk about when he started doing content, he brought on somebody and was like, all right, let's try this for 5 years and then we can see where we're at.
Yeah, my business coach, Myron Golden, he's 63 years old now. When he turned 60, he's like, I'm going to post a video a week on YouTube from 60 to 70. He's about to pass 90,000 subscribers. He's 63 years old.
It's incredible.
He's a dog.
Yeah, he is a dog. And he went way more and he just pooped out a second YouTube channel. And it's paying. He bought a fatty house, and he's like, bro, this new YouTube channel I started is already going to pay for the house. Yeah, he started a YouTube channel a couple months ago called Bible Study with Myron Golden, and it's a second channel. He wanted to he just wanted to separate the business conversation and the faith conversation, even though sometimes they intertwine. And I think he's got to pass 50,000 subscribers, and with very minimally edited videos, just long, great content.
He's also incredible at speaking.
Oh,
man.
dude, he's
can captivate
master
anybody.
communicator for sure.
We do need to ask you though, because we saw a reel, him talking about a $55,000 coaching program.
Yeah,
Did you pay that?
I did twice.
Twice?
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so
I have friends who paid him $1 million for a year,
I believe it.
but
I want to know though, from someone that's looking at investing in themselves, how scary was that decision, or did you know?
really good question.
Did you know that when you paid that 55,000, you're like, there's no other option but up? Talk to us through that moment when your credit card went through.
What if it didn't? No,
It declined, and I got a second one.
The
How
third
about-
credit card.
And I
He
applied
doesn't-
for the Amex Platinum.
Myron doesn't do credit cards. You only wire him the money.
Okay, so when you send the wire,
Yeah.
you get the $50 fee.
Yeah. No,
What's going through your mind?
There's levels
you
to
know
this.
what's funny is I thought you were investing in a person like that. Like, I'm gonna give Myron the money but like, it's not about the person more than it is about you. I found that hindsight, now being 2 years, working with him, that it was about me becoming somebody worth other people investing in themselves with me. And so the only thing that allowed me to go from $2,000 to charging $25,000 and $30,000 is a conviction and confidence in my value. And that only comes if you value yourself at that level. So yes, like I would say that was like one of the scariest investments I ever made. But now I'm like, I would not be where I am without that investment. And a lot of it was mental. It was killing limiting beliefs. However, I would encourage anyone, if you're looking to invest in yourself, number one, it should sting. Because if it doesn't cost you anything, you may not pay attention. They say, those who pay attention. Those who pay a lot of attention. And sometimes even some people that you guys coach or somebody else might coach or consult aren't getting results because you're not charging enough for them to pay to care. So sometimes it's like the price sometimes is very like ancillary. It really does. It's more about like the level you want people to care. And obviously people are at different levels. But I kind of went to his live event in June of 2023, and I already knew. I was like, whatever the offer is, I'm in. And it was scary. I texted my wife the photo. Funny, this is actually really funny. I don't think I've told it like live, but when Myron's giving his offer, there was a $127,000 one and $155,000 one. And he's like just stacking the value. That's called value stacking. When you're giving an offer, you're going to get this, you're going to get this. And this is how the value of it all adds up. And then he was like, take your pen. Well, first I sent it to Amanda and I was like, babe, how are we going to do this? Like, how are we going to pay for this? And she was like, we could take it out of the house, like equity or something. We'll figure it out. And I'm just grateful that my wife would even like believe in me enough to do that.
Did you send her 150?
Yeah, I took a picture of the sheet and it said 155. She's like, yeah, we could take out equity. In my mind, I thought it was going to be, I had to pay it all up front. It just, that's the way my brain works. And then he was like, take your pen and cross out that one. I was like, oh, this is a discount. Yeah, I was like, all right. But it was a lot. And I had a friend there that actually spoke at the event. And I asked him, I was like, dude, I don't know if I should do this. And he knew I was gifted. He knew I was going to make a lot of money one day and all that stuff. And he looked at me, he's like, Omar, this is why you're afraid to charge people. It's because you haven't invested in yourself at a high level. He's like, that's the only reason I would say do it. I'm not telling you to do it. I'm saying do it because you need to be somebody who charges a lot because you're really good at what you do. And you're going to just be stuck there. And so I was like, okay. And I did. Yeah. And then on top of it, the cherry on top is, who Myron is. He's somebody I would like to be at 63. The way his family respects him. His whole family is a part of his business. His brother does the sales calls. His daughter's the CEO. His family and his people love him. Like at 63, I would love. So there's a level to that too when you invest in yourself. It's not always just the skill. it's the person you're investing with in yourself that's going to, you should respect them.
So what did you get for the $55,000? What was that coaching program? What did it look like?
Well, what I got was who I became, but not to just, because I know where that question comes from. That question comes from the concept that if you paid $55K, you must have got a lot. And the reality is, I'm learning you don't pay for stuff, you pay for speed. So, it's 2 calls a month on Zoom. Ask him whatever question. He had a curriculum of stuff. 4 events a year in Tampa where you go and the people you get access to and you can go to it. I just came from it actually. But maybe the question you're really asking is like, how fast did you get the return? And I got it in a month. I doubled it. So what happened was on a call, I was just asking because I brought my ignorance. By the way, that's what the most expensive thing we'll pay in life is ignorance. The reason why we pay the expert or we pay the coach or we pay the consultant is to get there faster. And if you choose to try to figure it out yourself, then you're just going to be on this long journey. It's going to take longer.
Yeah, you're either paying with money or time.
Yeah, for sure. And the reality is time does not equal money. Time is infinitely more valuable than money. Because if I had $1 million and I say, you want $1 million, would you take it?
Yes.
Okay. If I said, here's $1 million, but you can't live tomorrow, will you take this?
Of course not.
Because time is infinitely more valuable. So he helped me see kind of what your question was. Like, I was stuck at charging $2,000 for a year of my time, and I asked him, I was like, Myron, how come every time I think about charging more, my brain goes to what can I include? How much more do I need to add in order to charge more? And then he just painted this picture that I'll never forget. And I hope if somebody's listening to this or watching this, you'll never forget this. He said, Omar, I'm going to give you a hypothetical situation. I was like, okay, go. He said, I have this program. It's going to help you make $10 million. It'll show you how to make $10 million. Are you interested? 100%. He's like, okay, so here's the offer. I have these 100 videos, the 100-page PDF, downloadable, whatever book, and 100 audio files. These things are going to show you how to make $10 million in a year. How good does that sound? I was like, sounds amazing. How much is it? He said, 20 grand. I was like, great. And he's like, or I have this other one. It's going to show you how to make $10 million in a year. It's one video. It's one piece of paper and one audio file. It's $35,000. Which one do you want?
Simplify it. I'm going that one.
Yeah.
This is crazy because we were talking last night and we were like, how can we charge more for this cohort that we just ran? And I was like, okay, we'll probably have to maybe bring in an extra guest speaker, obviously do it for longer. What else can we teach?
Yeah.
But you're right.
And honestly, you guys are on the same journey that I was on just a little bit ago, where because there's part of it is either you guys haven't invested in something and saw like how little you got. Part of it was like I invested $55K and then at first I'm like, where's all the stuff?
Where are the videos?
Yeah. And then you realize like
it's all fugazi.
Yeah.
Doesn't actually exist.
Yeah. And that's where we get into this dark side of online coaching, where people are just taking people's money. But no, it was like, it's paying for the transformation. And then what I got access to was how somebody delivers on a $55K offer. And I was like, oh, wow, cool. Like, I love that he includes a mini event. And then it's also like internalizing yourself. You investing in yourself, have the self-awareness to know what you care about the most. So when Myron was giving his offer, I only cared about one thing, and this is hilarious. There's this thing in marketing called a MIFGY, which means is the most incredible free gift ever, right? Russell Brunson came up with it. When you're giving the offer, perceived value is value. That's why we have to get really good at the words we use. More than we're going to help you get more clients. It's like, no, that's like, meh. A better way to put it is like, we're going to help you become a 6-figure creator. Like, And how can you justify that? Reverse engineer. How can you justify somebody being able to get to that place? And you're not doing it. They're going to have to do that. You're just going to get them there quicker than it would take them otherwise. But as Myron goes through his offer, he has this like brand that I like love and all that stuff. And he's like, here's the final bonus. He said, for those of you who join, how cool would it be if we wrote a book together? Your name and my name on the front cover of the book. Sounds cool. And then he's like, better yet, I already wrote the book and I own the rights. All you have to do is write the beginning of each chapter. How good does that sound? Dude, everything else, like nothing else mattered in the moment. I've been in his program for 1.5 years. Tell me if I've ever like taken him up on that. I haven't, but it's like, I should do it, but everyone joins for their own reason. And the more you deliver and the more people you help, you find out all the reasons people join and you build a program around the reasons they care about. And so I thought all people cared about was quality video, which that's one type of person. Another person cares about their messaging. Another person cares about their offer. Another person, they care about me. So like I've included like a part where if you like pay in full in my coaching program, I'll do a podcast with you. And like for some people, they're like laser focused on that thing. And yeah, so how you charge more, honestly, you charge more when you can guarantee the results quicker.
What were some of the limiting beliefs that you had to break down? I know you mentioned the one earlier about price, but tell us about, these one-on-one sessions with Myron. What was going on?
And let me clarify. Yeah. It was a group coaching program.
Okay.
You don't get one-on-one.
You don't get one-on-one.
Unless you pay him $350,000 for a day.
How many people were on the group?
I think there's like close to 200 people in that group.
Wow.
But the thing, in every group, not everyone's engaged. Dude, I haven't shown up. I mean, I'm the worst. I have not shown up on a call in forever.
You got what you wanted.
When I told him, I was like, dude, I doubled my investment. He's like, bro, everything else is gravy from this point. But like, keep paying attention, bro. Like, there's still game to receive. I'll first start off by saying I have found that business is a game of beliefs. At every level, there is a limiting belief. So I might break a limiting belief in one aspect, but then there's always another one to get to the next level. And I think that's the journey. That's the fun thing about entrepreneurship, because right now I have a limiting belief around hiring people. In my mind right now, I'm like, I feel like I cannot find somebody that's better at what I want them to do than me. Weird limiting belief. And I think it's just because I'm such a perfectionist. Maybe I just like go to the extent of something to really become good at whatever it is I, learn. But that's just a limiting belief. Is there somebody that's just better than me at whatever? Like, I feel like, and that's a limiting belief. I realize that, but for some reason it still lingers. But in that moment, it was just the idea that when you invest, you're not losing. Like, it's not leaving you. When you invest in yourself, it doesn't leave you. It's a seed sown into who you are becoming. And so I think the limiting belief is that like what you invest in, there's these like all these things that you're going to get, and then the other thing is just that I thought you had to work really hard to make a lot of money.
I did too. I think that was one from like just growing up, like your family kind of instills that in you.
100. I mean,
especially when you come from a very hardworking family and you see that, you're like, this is what it is. I had to retrain my brain. My girlfriend literally was like, money should come to you easily and frequently. Yeah. Not like I had this notion that I have to work super hard for the money. And it was earth shattering. Yeah. When you hear someone say that, because you're like, no, you're wrong. You're wrong. Like you want to say that you're wrong. And it took me a really long time to understand that. And like similar to you, like when I was in college, I invested $5,000 that I did not have on credit to try to understand how to make money online. And within like a month, I shattered it by like 5x'd it. And I'm like, no way. Oh, this is crazy. Yeah. I'm making money while I'm sleeping.
And that creates a new belief.
A completely new belief.
So like, it's actually not like killing a belief more than replacing a belief. Another one is that you need an audience, to be financially successful. Like that's not true. You could be unknown. Now I think it's wise to build your personal brand, That's an observation and opinion on my end. I would say that, like, you know, it kind of keeps going back to like including more and doing more. I think it's just like, that's the biggest thing. And it's always just it's not how much less I can do for you, but how can we do this quicker? And something I'm finding, my discovery from people who are like, they're having $1 million days and they're just like absolutely crushing it and stuff, is a lot of them are condensing the time of fulfillment. So rather than selling a 6-week program, let's just do this in 3 days. Come to LA, come to Las Vegas. We're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4. And by the time you leave, XYZ. And like, that sounds really good to people. This is why plastic surgery is popular. People are paying to skip the process.
Quickness, yeah.
And so that same buyer mentality happens when you say like, this can happen really quick. Now it just depends on what the promise is. You know, obviously you can't come to Las Vegas and grow 100,000 subscribers in the 3 days that we're there, but like maybe it's getting the process and the systems in place so that you can then go home and then just like crush it with your YouTube packaging or something.
That's another thing that you kind of just blew my mind on, because we've been talking about wanting to do live events or coaching in person.
Oh, man.
And I'm like, well, if we're only doing it for a day or even like a weekend, we wouldn't be able to charge as much as we would be able to for a 6-week course. That's crazy.
Like, why not charge more than what you charge for the cohort? But what's cool, and this is just now you're getting into the world of offer creation. You know, I like to say content creation is wealth creation, but also offer creation is wealth creation. And the reality is if you have that in-person thing, it potentially could be more than the cohort, because it is in person and you are going to get quicker, you know, momentum and all that stuff. It is, yeah. It's very enlightening, because I still struggle with that. I mean, I did a VIP day with a guy that reached out to me, and I think we landed on at this first one, it was $15K, which doesn't really make sense if you can like jam with me for a year, for way longer. I want to say I should have charged him more, but based on what I accomplished for him, he got 4 YouTube videos shot. Like, I've done for you. I don't do any done for you. I left agency, but in this regard, there's some consulting. We go back and forth with the title ideas, and then he shot some ads. I helped him with a web class so that he can have an ad in his YouTube videos. Like, no one's starting their YouTube videos or their YouTube channel with this much clarity, you know? But long story short, I'm seeing it more and more, but at the end of the day, you just have to go and do it.
Yeah.
Even when I was doing my agency work, one of the barometers that taught me how to charge more was just my intuition. If you ever sat at your computer and you're maybe still working on that project and you're like, dang, it's no longer worth my time, that's a good indicator that it's time to charge more. Or when it's just like the back and forth, and it's like, good night. Now at this point, this feels free, you know? So you do the thing, you pay the costs and all that stuff, and it's like, was this worth it? No, dude, we should probably charge more. Like, but you wouldn't have known that unless you just went and did it.
When did that light bulb moment for you about why a personal brand is so important and that you could monetize it, when did that moment hit for you?
I believe it was just attributed, more than a moment, it was just it was probably Gary Vee. I realized that like the dude knew who he was talking to. He was talking to people who had something in them, a dream, a business, whatever. And so I was able to connect at a distance, but I guess the light bulb moment would have been whenever he dropped a book, people didn't buy just one book. People bought like 3, 10. My friend just put on an event this last summer. He bought 1,000 of his books. That's because my friend, who's in his entrepreneurial journey, Gary Vee means so much to him. And so Gary spoke, he paid him his speaker's fee, but he was like, hey, well, also I'll buy everyone in the room a book. The effect of that is brand, you know? And so I think I would attribute him to like the new era of creating a care for the thing, you know, connected to an individual. And then, you know, I feel like at that point, what happened was I saw my agency when when Gary Vee was doing his things, his daily V's or whatever, and I was helping a lash company. And there was something that stuck with me, and I still remember it to this day. The owner was like, hey, we just want to be like the Gary Vee of the lash industry. And it was like, okay, I get it. Like that's the,
Yeah.
you can create the personal brand in an industry and become the person.
I see. How would you define personal brand, and what do you feel like people get wrong about it?
I would define personal brand. I don't want to, I just steal the definition from a friend. His name's Rory Vaden. And he says it's the digitization of your reputation. Maybe Omar's sub definition would be, what do people say about you when you're not in the room? That's your personal brand. Because I think personal brand is beyond online. It's what people think about you. As in a, you know, I think even people that work with me, like they have a brand, the way they walk into a room, the way they dress up, the way they carry themselves. Like I think about you in a way based on how intentional you are with your life. Right. So I would say it like that. And I would say some people that have it wrong are people who are trying to copy somebody else's personal brand. Can you be the next Gary Vee or the next Alex Ramosi or the next Chris Do or the next Omar Eltakrori? You see how I included myself in that list?
As you should.
Yeah, but you could be inspired by people, but like, I mean, it should still be you. And that's what's working right now. What's working is the people that find what works for them is what's working. I know that's like makes me sound smart, but it's not that crazy. I get hit up by this like local hairdresser. I was showing art, and sometimes I feel weird when girls show up on my like Instagram feed, because I try not to like, because if I stay there long enough, if you go on my feature page, you know, they like, dude,
yeah, they just bombard you.
How about this is gross. You know, I'd be at conferences, people would be like, dude, thank you so much. You're grateful for all the content. Cool, man. Like, you know, let's take a picture. They'll pull up their phone and like they're on their feature page and it's just butts. And then they'll like want me to like type something on their phone. I'm like, bro, this is gross right now.
You need to fix your For You page.
Yeah. But no, this hairdresser, and she's just washing the hair of her clients, and she's just fitted. Like every day she comes into work fitted, and she just films herself washing hair, and she just looks at the camera, and then it jump cuts different outfits. And she's like 200,000 followers as a local hairstylist.
Wow.
She just found her thing. If anybody tells you there's one way to do something, don't listen to them. And this is why I genuinely love coaching, because I love helping people find out what it is for them. And it's okay. Like it might not be YouTube in this season. This is why, like the podcast question, dude, maybe you don't do a video podcast. How consistent would you be if you just focus on audio? Right? Oh man, I could start yesterday. Let's do it. Start. That's the goal. So, I think just trying to copy somebody else. Another fascinating thing I have found is, personally, I haven't found a very impactful personal brand with somebody doing it all by themselves. They have some level of team, somebody, whether it's the person actually creating the content for them, somebody on the team to help them, something like to do it at a level that you're impacting many people. It does, I feel like, require a level of community. And it might not even be like hired people. It might be you're in a part of a community or you're a part of a program. Just the idea of trying to build it alone.
When you started really making money on the online space, who did you bring on to the team? And who did you maybe hire that you're like, I actually don't need this anymore at this moment? This isn't what we need to continue to grow. Because I know we have Art here. He cooks behind the scenes for you. Like, who else are you bringing? Who else have you brought on?
Yeah. By the way, like Art has his job description. I didn't use ChatGPT to write it. Here's his job description: make me look awesome. And I think a lot of people who are in business should hire somebody that makes them look awesome.
I've heard you say this before.
Yeah, and the reality is like much of what we do is not sexy.
Yeah. But
you can make it look sexy, bro. Like I'm just jamming on podcast today. It's work.
Yeah.
But we make it look tight as heck, bro. You know? And people are like, bro, Omar, you're the man. I was like, bro, I flew Southwest to get here, bro. Like, it's not that crazy.
24B.
Yeah.
Middle seat.
But no, you get to board whenever. No, that's why you said 24B. Okay, so I think it's understanding yourself. You know, I think there is wisdom in hiring people do the stuff that especially I'm finding this with like CEOs that are better creators than they are CEOs. Like, you should hire a CEO. I think a hire I made that wasn't like the smartest was, I thought I wanted to like start up the agency thing again, especially using out my studio. And so I hired someone to like start and run that, but she had an entrepreneurial brain and She just did it herself, and that didn't work out. And I also was like, I don't know if I even want to do that. That wasn't, but that was just trying to like capture an opportunity that I maybe wasn't like well worth it. But what I'm finding is like, I don't even know there's certain type of jobs that would be very beneficial for me, to build the video department. And one I just got exposed to yesterday was a content writer. Like, something I have found is that I don't have a content problem. I've been doing what I've been doing for a very long time, that you could put me on a podcast. I can have a podcast. I can do a coach call. Like, the content's already there. I need somebody to like take what I say and then, help me unpack it more sometimes. Like, sometimes I'll say something and I'll surprise myself. And I'm like, dude, I think that's something, because I could feel like I just hit a vein. Like, we can make, that's an email. That might be a podcast. Like, one great example is something I've discovered is that like 40-year-olds want to create content, 40-plus-year-olds. And I made a video, a podcast episode. Me and Art did it in Puerto Vallarta, kind of a flex, but we were just on a vacation and I wanted to write off his travel.
Was that also Southwest or?
No, American.
Yeah. They got direct flight from Vegas now. Just no, but it really resonated. And I uploaded a part 2, like just yesterday actually. And that's just a conversation, like I just think about like, how deep can we go with these 40-year-olds, 40-plus-year-olds? I was going to say 2.0 era. People, they have money. That's cool. But they also have life experience. And I actually think their path to impact is quicker than a 19-year-old being a coach.
Dude,
helping people,
We've been having this conversation in this apartment about how you shouldn't be a life coach before 30.
For sure.
You need some life experience.
Yeah, I mean, and I'm trying to unpack Gen Z a lot. Like, I'm in ministry, and I realize that I had I'm sure the generation before me were like, dude, millennials are wild. I'm just trying to unpack because I want to understand them better. I think many of Gen Z they feel like they're behind. That's like huge. They're like, I should be further along. And yeah, I think they have, like, generally speaking, and I could sound ignorant for speaking in generalities, but my observation leads me to believe that they don't want to plant. They don't want to stick around. They're waiting for the next, like, not get rich quick, but that idea, like, what's the next opportunity I could jump to accelerate something? And it's like, there is no such thing as acceleration other than process. And I'm grateful that I gave my life to build other people's businesses, that when it was time to build mine, that in less than 2 years, I can generate over 7 figures. That doesn't just happen. That happens when you become the person. And it's like, humble yourself. Like, I don't know. I mean, that's just something, like, it's just something I feel with that generation. And it's true. Like, just serve somebody, help somebody else build their thing. And trust me, the moment you'll want to do that, if anything, you could partner with the person you were building the thing with, but like, you're not creating that opportunity for later by just stick with it,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, you hear Gary Vee talk about that a lot. Like, he'll talk to kids who are in their 20s or even like early 20s, and they're like, I don't know what the fuck I want to do with my life.
Right.
Like, I need to have it all figured out. He's like, dude, slow the fuck down. Do you realize how young you are?
It's crazy.
And I'm 29. I'm turning 30, which is weird to say in like 6 months or seven months. Yeah, they're calling me Unk. But I feel like the older you get, like, I feel like when you were younger, looking at 30 or thinking about 30, you're like, oh
ancient.
my God, ancient. Dude, and I'm like, I don't even feel, I'm 29.
No,
but
dude,
like,
I feel like a kid
29.
still, bro, too, bro.
Yeah.
That never goes away. Like, the inner kid, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I have 2 kids, and I'm like, what am I doing entrusted with human life? Like, but I would just, I mean, in that regard, I think it's, I don't know where I was going with that. Where were you going with that?
I don't know where I was going with that. I just think
29, you're not late to the party.
You aren't. That's the point.
Yeah. I mean, and I get it. There are some instances where people have these like freak experience and like, yeah, they're like crypto millionaires, that's unicorns.
Yeah.
Right. But there is, I try not to be this, but there is I get a sense, a temperament that everyone should be an entrepreneur and everyone should be their own boss. In some aspects, it's like everyone should take ownership of your life.
Yeah.
everyone should own the role they're hired in, like an owner, and then watch your life change because you're a good steward of the season of life you live in. But I don't believe everyone should be an entrepreneur, you know? But yeah, everybody's trying to do their own thing. And I think a lot of that is also the messaging that's getting to people that are like, I need to figure it, like what is the thing for me? And it's like, whoa, just hunker down, it's chill, it's gonna be okay. And just some perspective, I found like it took, you know, the 18 years it takes to get to 20 to 30, or that's terrible math. The 19 years, I guess you could say. I said 18 years to get to 20, but you know that what I mean is the development.
Sure.
Like you spent 5 years not knowing how to function, and then the next 5 like meeting kids and friends, and then all that led to 20. The reality is, it's what I'm trying to get at is momentum in decades. Like the momentum you have when you go into your 30s, if you steward your 20s, like you have 10 years of lock-in. And then out of those 10 years of lock-in, you're going to go into your 40s. And like, that's why like the compound effect. And I think life is a life of being, of discovery. Kind of back to Myron, I think he's just being revealed right now. He has this thing he always says. He says, Abraham Lincoln says, prepare yourself and perhaps your time will come. But Myron will say, whether you prepare yourself or not, your time will come. And depending on how you prepared yourself, it'll either expose you or reveal you. It's you get to decide. Do you want to be revealed or you want to be exposed?
Yeah.
I love that.
I also think, going back to your point of like, you need to put the time in, we had been doing content using a camera for each close to a decade before I think we started this podcast. We also have another co-host who's not here today. But between the three of us, we had about 30 years, I would say, of like experience. And I think we would be able to do the podcast to an extent because we had like put our time in if we had tried to do it each solo. But I also think that like the cumulative time that we've all put together allows us to do the podcast at a level that I don't think we would be able to do. I know we wouldn't be able to do alone, but also like we put the time in of honing in our craft before
100.
we even decided to start teaching
To talk about it.
Yeah.
I think that's super important. If there was a platform right now that someone should be on, if they had to just pick, maybe let's go 3. What do you think they should be on? Or do you think that someone should just pick one and be really good at the one and put their eggs in that basket? I'm curious to hear your take.
It's really good. I hate to not be like direct in my answer, but it's like, what's the objective, you know?
Okay, let me rephrase. If someone wanted to build a brand, a personal brand online, and eventually maybe sell the information that they know about said topic, or sell a product that they've created, whether it be physical, digital, whatever, where do you think they should be putting their attention?
I believe they should be putting their attention on YouTube, because it could shorten the path of selling something, because trust is easier to be built on YouTube. You don't need a huge following.
I think you can't bullshit YouTube either. It's like,
True,
especially on a podcast specifically, it's like they're going to find out who you are
100.
Sooner rather than later. If you're talking for an hour, they're going to say, this is what this person actually is like. And
Dude, this is why, I mean, part of why I think Trump won.
Because
people got him, they got to consume him, not polished, edited, just, there was no agenda.
They called it Colin and Samir called it the podcast election.
Yeah, no,
and
it's
I saw
crazy.
those views on YouTube and all of the data. It was very interesting.
Yeah, I think he was on 25 hours worth of like content or podcasts, and Kamala Harris was only on like 4.
Yeah.
And the dichotomy there is crazy.
And it just says something, right?
Sure.
But the psychology, I would say the consumption behavior on YouTube is way more bought in than on Instagram.
I agree completely.
Now I have a friend who he made like 4 million last year on Instagram, all organic. I think it's just kind of like which one it resonates with you. But I think at the end of the day, I believe if you're charging people for something to help them, you know, maybe make more money in their business, or become somebody that they believe they want to become, or whatever that may be, fitness, whatever, you should just be able to talk, articulate for long periods of time. Anyone can be like, here are the 3 ways to 1, 2, 3.
Totally.
But can you Can you have a conversation about something? Can you break down a framework you've come up with, intellectual property, and then distill it down to a 3rd grade level and deliver that to people? My goodness. Like, you don't need a crazy sales process at that point. Like Nolan was at Think Media. He's made like 200 grand just by saying like, DM me on Instagram from YouTube. And his Instagram could use some work from, but he's focused on YouTube. And if you want to make a couple $100,000, like, run it. I know somebody who has 1,000 subscribers that has made millions just with live streaming. And then somebody in my program, she has 13,000 subscribers, and she just got a $30,000 client. Wow. With 8 videos, and she hates her videos
on YouTube specifically.
Wow,
that's so interesting.
Yeah,
it's very interesting to see where it's going. Do you put any time or attention into LinkedIn?
No, I know it's whatever time or attention people would put, they'd get good
ROI. It's interesting to see. I think my bet is on YouTube personally. I think YouTube, Coast and I have talked about this like for thousands of hours, but we think YouTube is the place for any person to try to build a brand. I do think it's hard. I don't think it's easy.
Yeah, no,
I don't think it's an easy platform to dominate on, because there's so many different things. And like you were saying earlier in the episode, like, if they're not clicking on it, you could spend 48 hours on one video, but it doesn't matter. Like, that packaging is so important, and simplifying it down to being just the most simplistic thing. Like, if you see 100 thumbnails and a good title, like, are you going to click on said title? It's very interesting.
And I mean, I don't want to overlook the idea that if you do it well and you do it right, YouTube can fuel the whole thing. So the long form can be cut into short form.
Yes.
Like, most people aren't asking me what other things should, people be creating on, but like, are you building out your email list? And then, are you sending emails? What do you mean, Omar? I gotta write emails? No, you don't have to write emails. Like, the content you're creating on YouTube, it could be, my email strategy, by the way, is taking moments from my podcast. I post them on Instagram, and that moment is an idea. Many times it's delivering on one idea, and then I write out a caption, and then my assistant, she takes the caption and the idea and puts together an email. And that's how I send an email. And it's awesome. It works, And then if you're consistent on YouTube, if it is more informational, you can export the audio, and congratulations, you just started a podcast.
Yeah.
Bang.
So it's like, that's why YouTube is, because it actually could fuel every other thing.
Yeah, you got the one long form thing, and then from this episode we're gonna have 40 different pieces. Which is crazy to think of. And that was the big light bulb moment for us, was putting it to Reels and TikTok. That's when the show actually started to grow, because we'd get these Reels.
That's how I got exposed to your guys' show.
Really?
Yeah. I mean, I was just like, oh snap, Jacob Owens, like, dude, he's an OG.
OG.
Dude, we drove to Arizona 6.5 hours, got a speeding ticket on the way up, podcasted with him for 2 hours, and drove back the same day.
6 hours.
Snap.
Yeah, and I remember what he was like, you guys will come to me? We're like, we'll be there anytime. And he's like, cool, we'll do it when. I'm like, we're waking up at 5. We'll be there.
Way to go. I feel like that would have showed you a lot about the value of that, capturing a conversation, especially with somebody you value. How about the power of the fact that you had a podcast? You didn't have to pay him for anything. There was a cost to get in proximity to him, but like, you got access.
The speeding ticket. That was only.
There you go. Yeah. And then now there's relationship there. I'm sure you have his number.
Yeah, he's the man.
No, it's really cool.
And he's been super helpful with so many things with our brand.
So good.
Yeah.
I love that he is, he shows like I find that like the first giant is the business giant. Like, figure that thing out.
Yeah.
Figure out how the systems and processes, how you actually are going to make money predictably. It shouldn't be guessing. And then at that, like, that's not the end. The next game is the tax game.
Oh, yeah. Oh, dude.
But because the next game is a tax game, it leads you down the path of understanding how to build wealth and invest in other things. And I love how he's been able to offset taxes and then still use his expertise, open up studios and stuff like that.
Yeah. It's been super cool. What are some of the systems and processes that you've implemented that you've seen to really make things run behind the scenes more smooth?
I mean, that content calendar strategy, from like one long upload on YouTube to help me be consistent, that leads to the emails. Deciding on an event that you do predictably in your business so people can raise their hand when they're ready. So sometimes we think that, like, nobody goes on these platforms to buy something, but like, what opportunity are you giving them to learn more about a thing? I don't know. You guys had Daniel Priestley. He loves introductory events. like a web class or an in-person
webinars. Yeah.
Like I mean, in the last 3 months, I think I made like 50 grand doing a webinar a week.
I saw Russell. So Russell said that in your podcast that you did with him. He
he
does
said
one a week.
If you do a webinar a week for a year, you'll never have to worry about money again in your life.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's because what it does to you. It shows you that you don't need to keep coming up with something new. It shows you that like by doing a webinar a week, you get really good at communicating.
Yeah.
You know, and then it's just a great trust accelerator to get people to the next step.
Were you charging for it, Omar?
So I don't charge for that. So you could take it. I always say it's like a call, but then I do at the end of that invite people to buy a ticket to my 5-day content to cash challenge. So some people go directly and buy a ticket to the challenge. There's $97 or $197. But from that web class, you know, it's structured in a way that it shows the opportunity of what the web class can do for you.
Yeah. How do you structure it? Are you basically doing like how long is it, and are you teaching for like an hour?
Yeah, it's about an hour. Sometimes it goes to 2 hours, only because I don't want to do Q&A, but if people have questions about something regards to the challenge, I'm like down to hang and talk, you know. But yeah, I teach, you know, Myron's taught me that like whenever you have a lead magnet, which an introductory event is a lead magnet, you know.
It's free, it's great.
Yeah.
Learn a lot.
But you also don't use the word free.
Okay.
Just take that away from your vocabulary.
Okay, take the word free, okay.
Because you don't want to deal with people who jump at that word. Now, it could be free. Mm-hmm. Just let them find out it's free after they love the idea more than they love the fact it's free. Does that make sense?
Yeah, and I think it's a different buyer.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally different buyer.
So
okay.
They say like your lead magnet or that thing, that downloadable PDF, whatever that lead magnet thing is, should be leading people away from pain. People are more receptive. So mine's the 5 mistakes entrepreneurs make when building their personal brand. So please tell me what I'm doing wrong. Like that's kind of like the tonality. And then, yeah, I give those 5 mistakes. It is structured in a way. Everything I do is psychologically intended to get people not to buy necessarily, but to if they're in the place that it would be the best next step. So I don't give tactics. I used to, that's another, how about, let's go all the way back 1,000 minutes ago where you said like it's another limiting belief. I thought in communication, giving tactics was valuable, and it's not, because people don't need tactics. They need to think about the thing you're teaching about differently. Tactics are less important. If they think about the way they charge a client, or they think about the way they deliver a project, that's more important than here's how you'll deliver the project. You know what I'm saying? And because they're just dipping their toes in. So like, I mean, it was kind of like a twofold, by the way. When I made videos that did really well on Think, you know, I realized that in so many cases, it wasn't as tactical as I thought. Because if I said how to create a podcast, I think it has 1 million views. I just told you what to do. I didn't show you how to create a podcast. There's a difference. This is very meta, but it's like if you can teach how to, but in the how to you give what's and whys and where's, then yeah, it as an expert, it's so easy to teach. So I say all that to say, I actually just, in those mistakes, I use people as examples and I tell stories, and then people see themselves in those stories. And then it's like, yo, I'm doing this awesome thing called the Content to Cash Challenge. And then the Content to Cash Challenge, I think it's an experience unlike any other. I'm not a fan of courses. And so it's a live 5-day virtual experience. And kind of going back to why I even got into that flow, it was your question was like, what are some things you put in place? It was deciding on things I was okay with being predictable in my business. It's like, that's like so boring to do a web class a week and then do a challenge once every other month or something. But creating predictability is what people need. Because in our minds, we think that when we do the cohort, everyone who was supposed to do the cohort joined the cohort. And it was like, in some aspect, yes, because they did. But in many aspects, somebody might be awakened to the idea of the thing you guys help people with later on. I have people who took my challenge, didn't buy my offer, and then they came and took the challenge again and then bought the offer. Like when they were ready, they did it. But am I giving them the opportunity when they're ready to jump in and do something with me? And so I think that's really key. What's the boring things in your business that you're okay with doing? And honestly, there is fulfillment. Every time I do the web class, it's like, dude, that was a great 90 minutes. Like those people were pumped up, fired up, like usually on average are selling like 20 tickets. I'm making like $5,000 or so. And then I go golf and then I go home. It's like helping people can serve both sides.
Can you go into consistency a little bit more? You're talking about being consistent with these webinars and also with the podcast and content in general. How big has consistency been for your business and personal brand? I feel like consistency outweighs
100.
Like not necessarily production value, but like I feel like consistency is like the whole thing. Like if you're not consistent, it doesn't matter how good the content is.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been thinking a lot about that because the consistency is kind of like a buzzword, like in all things, whatever you desire to do, you should like be consistent in. But I found that because people were saying like, dude, I've been posting videos for 2 years straight, once a week. Okay. So you're consistent, but you're not seeing results. So what's the disconnect? You're not intentionally consistent. Intentional consistency over time leads to growth. And so with my showing up every week to do my web class, my intention is to perfect it every week. Every week there's a new slide to like tweak. Every week there's something else that I realize like while I'm giving it, but it's because I'm trying to be better. James Clear, I think in Atomic Habits says 1% better every day. I think when you have that mindset, like, okay, be consistent, but what about my consistency do I need to change? Like, how can this be better? How can this be something that like literally when I had it, I think the reason why I love like, I call it shredding, like art's my shredditor. It's actually a new art form.
Okay.
No pun intended. Because he's already cooking right now. He's already editing the photos. He's going to have a recap and we're going to post it on my stories of this and it's done.
You hear that, Nick? This episode needs to be uploaded
today.
5 minutes.
Yeah. No, a shredditor, I think that is the hire, by the way. Sure. I'm kind of going all over the place, but it was, I asked myself this question and it's led me down a path of, excellence. It's how can I do this faster without losing quality? Like, and that asking that question every time has led me down to be able to accomplish more with less time without compromising quality. And so, yeah, intentional consistency over time. So don't just post the videos. Look back. What could you do better? Just one thing, and then boom, change out the next, and then the compound effect.
What's your take on finding a niche versus being the niche?
Yeah, there's like that phrase that I think Gary Vee says, you are the niche. I think niche is getting overplayed, the word. People hate it, so I don't like using it. Again, human psychology. You don't like the word, just stop using it. I think other words for it is focus. Like, so people say, I don't want to niche down too much. What they're really saying is, I don't want to focus, which is why it doesn't work. So there is a limiting belief in thinking that if I'm more general in my approach to building my brand, I will reach more people. When the people who've built audiences will come, you find out like general brands don't do anything effective. Also, you can't charge a lot if you're a general person, right? Most people, if you needed to get brain surgery, would you go to a general doctor or do you want to go to a brain surgeon?
Brain surgeon.
And regardless of how much this guy charges, it's because he specializes in his focus or in his niche is why he could charge so much. So I think I think it's important to be known for a thing. As far as the brand goes, the way you intertwine your life that's more strategic, and strategic and natural at the same time. My friend Neil, we kind of teaches on these like 5 F's. So like, let's say your focus is filmmaking, but you can include on like your stories and the way you deliver your content, you can include things like your family, your faith, your fitness, your food, and your fashion. Like these are things that people rally around. So because I post my daughter a lot, I get a lot of love from like people who have young kids, because I'm very vocal about my faith, strong connection, people respect me, and things like that. Like, so although I can share that stuff. At the end of the day, it is personal branding, content creation, online business.
What is something you're trying to work on in the next 6 to 12 months?
What am I trying to work on in the next 6 to 12 months?
Doesn't have to necessarily be business. Could be personal, could be relational.
I mean, it's as weird as it sounds, dude. I'm not a big goals guy. I think life's more bigger than checking off the box. I think it's just finding the flow. And it's hard to articulate it, but like I'm excited because we're gonna move into a space like the church I'm one of the pastors at. We're moving into a building we just built in Vegas, and then that space that the staff occupied, we're gonna take over. And there's like a 200-seat auditorium. There's 4 big offices, a nice lobby. I don't know, just trying to figure out how that's gonna work. It's a scary jump, but I'm excited. You know, I'd love to do a live event where maybe a couple hundred people come out. But man, I mean, I'm just trying to be the best husband I could be, the best father, pastor, and that's just a constant growing self-evolution. Love God and know about Him more. The more I learn about God, I learn more about myself. And then maybe stewarding relationships better. But I don't know. As weird as it sounds, I don't give it all too much thought, because if I do, it probably will give me anxiety.
Sure. Feel that. Last one for you. If you could go back and chat with 18-year-old Omar before you go on this.
What is this watch?
This is my grandpa. So this is a 55-year-old watch that he gave me when he passed away.
I thought it was like a bust down watch, which
no,
is like it's iced out.
No,
but the way
this is gold nugget, 14 karat gold nugget all the way around.
It's hard.
But he traded this for a horse. So he's a horse trainer, and he had a horse, and this guy really wanted his horse, and he's like, I don't have the cash. He's like, part cash, I'll do that watch.
Dude,
and so
that's fire.
He wore it like every day, and when he passed away, they gave it to me.
That's fire.
But your last one for you before we get you out of here.
Sorry.
No, I appreciate it. I love talking about it. It's really special to me. What would you say to your 18-year-old self before you went on this journey? Nothing to change the journey, but what maybe was a piece of advice you'd tell to your 18-year-old self?
It's weird. It's because it's like, I think I did a lot of things really well by the grace of God. I got married young, smart move. I served, smart move. Started reading my Bible a lot, smart move. I think the thing is, I wish I invested in myself sooner. I wish I wasn't so afraid of that. And I wish I was exposed to that idea sooner. So if there's somebody you resonate with, figure out a way you can get in proximity, and serve them, figure out a way to serve them. But those other things, I'm happy I got married young. I'm happy I started learning about being generous with my finances at a young age. But yeah, I would say that.
Omar, thank you so much for coming on this show. Ladies and gentlemen, that's episode 137 of the 505 podcast. If you're still here, please hit the subscribe button, drop us a comment. Go check out Omar's stuff down below, and we'll see you all next week. Peace.